best, as always, best 90s quarterbacks of all time. The definitive list on it here on the Sports Hour podcast. Mitch, let's wrap up the show here with our Sports Hour bracket this week. We've done a couple brackets. We started off during March Madness with the greatest college mascot team names of all time. And then not that long ago, we did another bracket to determine the greatest defensive player of all time, which we landed on Lawrence Taylor. Felt great about that. No complaints there.
Who was our greatest mascot? Who was the best mascot?
The Hawaii Rainbow Warriors.
That's right. Those the Rainbow Warriors. Yeah.
And by the way, in hindsight on both of those decisions, feel great. I feel excellent about those.
100%.
Nailed that. And I have no doubt we'll nail today's bracket, Mitch. And today on the podcast, we are doing a 16-person bracket to determine the greatest college quarterback of all time. That's what we're doing today on the Sports Hour podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube or Twitter, you get to see the bracket up here in your face. If you're listening, you'll just have to follow along. But Mitch and I have seeded. We've chosen 16 players in college football history. We've seeded them, and now we will go through to figure out who is the greatest college quarterback of all time. And I want to start this off by saying I don't think there's a definitive answer out there for this. When you look up at greatest NFL player, defensive player of all time, Lawrence Taylor comes up 95% of the time, right? But, and you can, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but the searching that I did on just other lists that existed, just to kind of cross-check, see where other people, there was no consensus among the lists that I found of any one particular player at the top. It was a wide variety of cases on who people put as the best quarterback of college football's history. So I'm excited to see where we end on this.
Yeah, I mean, I saw anything from Tim Tebow to Johnny Manziel. It was even mentioned in some of those lists because of his excitement he brought as a quarterback, which clearly you wouldn't consider him one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time, but he's mentioned in some people's lists because it resonates something. I think that when it comes to talking about college quarterbacks, it is completely subjective. Because I think more so than the NFL, college football makes you feel certain, like different feelings. I think that like you get more tied to the individual than you do like in the NFL where you get tied to the team. Right. And so, I think this is going to be a very interesting one that we go through. We got 16 guys. We split them up into 4 groups. So basically, you're going to see it as kind of 1 through 16. But basically, what we have is 4 groups. One group of 4 1 seeds, 4 2 seeds, 4 3 seeds, 4 4 seeds. With the 4 seeds being what we call small school legends. But basically, what it's going to be is non-Power 5 legends that we have grouped into the 4 seeds. So you're going to see some names excluded. Don't get at us, right? We'll get to them later, but we want to give some of the small school non-Power 5 greats the shout out and give them the opportunity to go through this bracket as well. So
absolutely. Because just like March Madness, you'd have some small schools ready to upset on the big stage. And just like that, we've set that up the same way. So perhaps we will see some upsets.
It's not interesting to just get the chalk guys in there. It's not interesting.
Come on. We're about content, people. This is a content machine, not an information box.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not a textbook. We're trying to make some content here. Let's go.
Okay, without further ado, Mitch, let's jump into this and let's start at the top with the number 1 seed, Tim Tebow, versus the number 4 seed, Kellen Moore, in this side of the bracket. Tim Tebow, obviously at the top, his storied career at Florida. Kellen Moore, on the other hand, Boise State legend, led them through their most successful period in their school's history. Has gone on to be a great NFL coach in his own right. Neither guys had great NFL careers, but had obviously fantastic college careers in a similar time, late 2000s, early 2010s, right around there, which is kind of funny that they match up here at the top. So I'll let you say whatever you want about Kellen Moore before we pick Tim Tebow here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's objectively Tim Tebow is the answer here. But I love that Kellen Moore is on this bracket because, he has one of the, sorry about that, the squeaky voice there. He has objectively one of the great college football moments of all time with the statue, or it's not the Statue of Liberty play, but has one of the greatest college football runs of all time, where Boise State was in the top 5 in the country for a 2-year stretch. I mean, they were national championship contenders as a team out of the Mountain West. I mean, they had a really, really good run, and he had really, really solid play. The fact that he almost by himself was able to elevate that program to that level certainly puts him in the conversation. But Tim Tebow, I mean, just his college run that he put together was just unmatched. Almost won 2 Heismans, and he's just not going to beat Tebow in this one.
Yeah, we'll talk about Tebow more. Kellen Moore, though, I mean, from 2009 to 2011, Mitch, all 3 seasons he finished top 8 in Heisman voting as a quarterback from Boise State. I mean, if that doesn't tell you what kind of impact he had on the sport, getting recognition like that at that level, big time. But Tim Tebow will advance here in the first part of this bracket. Mitch, up next, this is the 3-4 matchup in this side of the bracket. We have, the 2-3 matchup in this side of the bracket. We have 2 seed Roger Staubach versus the 3 seed Baker Mayfield. Interesting matchup here.
Yeah, I mean, another interesting one, and that Baker had the long-term success, right? Baker had the long-term success at Oklahoma. But Roger Staubach was a game changer, man. He was a part of those that era where the military academy schools were like top tier programs in the nation. And Roger Staubach was the best quarterback to come out of those military programs, coming out of Navy. Didn't actually partake in his first 4 seasons that he was eligible for the NFL because he was serving, right? He was serving his country. He's a damn American, people. Salute Roger Staubach. That's why I'm giving Roger Staubach the edge. You know what? I don't think that I am partial to Baker Mayfield. I don't think that there's, Baker had the, objectively a better, statistical career at Oklahoma. But, Roger Staubach, he was a trendsetter. He was originator of the scrambling quarterback, especially at the college football level. And so I give the nod to Staubach.
Listen, Baker, great career, 7th all time in passing yards in college football history. Won a Heisman at Oklahoma. Couldn't reach the national title game and have that success on that end, but great individual career for Baker Mayfield. But I will go with you on Roger Staubach here. Won the Heisman 1963 at Navy, and the last player to win the Heisman from a service academy. So obviously a throwback here, but we got to give some respect to the old heads. We'll go Roger Staubach. Yeah. I like that. I feel great about that. Mitch, up next. Great matchup here. Matt Leonard, who will be the 2 seed here in this portion of the bracket, against the 3 seed Andre Ware. This is a kind of a tough matchup. What are your thoughts initially here?
This is a really tough one because I really like Andre Ware. His Heisman season at Houston in 1989 was so dominant that it actually willed him to be I believe the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft in 1989.
7th overall in 1990 to the Lions.
Yeah, 7th overall in 1990 to the Lions. He was 40 touchdown passes in his final season, almost over 4,500 yards at Houston in his senior season. Matt Leonard, though, man, just sustained success.
Yeah. 3 seasons of it.
So do you take the sustained success over the monster season that gave him the Heisman? Matt Leonard's got a Heisman too. As much as I love Andre Ware, and he was fun to watch. If you watch some of his old games, he's really fun to watch. I'm sure there's some on YouTube. I got to give it to Leonard. Yeah,
I'm good with Leonard on here as well. Again, Andre Ware, that final season in which he wins the Heisman in 1989, 46 passing touchdowns and almost 4,700 passing yards that season. I mean, my goodness, what a year he put up. But Leonard, I mean, had so much talent around him at USC, obviously, but got it done. 3 straight years, was just uber consistent, put up big numbers, won at a high level. So, yeah, I like Leonard there in that matchup. Mitch, up next here, then the 1-4 matchup in this side of the bracket. The number 1 seed, Trevor Lawrence, versus the number 4 seed, Ty Detmer. This is our small school legend here, the only one of this 4 seeds who actually won a Heisman. In fact, the year after Andre Ware, 1989 Heisman, how about the 1990 Heisman, went to Ty Detmer out of BYU. And Detmer, when he left BYU, left college football with the all-time record in passing yards and more than that, 15,000 career passing yards for Ty Detmer. He'd later get passed by Timmy Chang, but held that record for over a decade. And nobody was close to him in that regard. He was by far and away the record holder there in that Heisman season as well, obviously, at BYU. Ty Detmer was a great college quarterback. I'm glad we got to include him in here, and I appreciate you letting me put him in here because he's not going to beat Trevor Lawrence at all. But good to give Ty Detmer some love here.
Yeah, I really want to pick Ty Detmer, but I can't. He's matched up against Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I can't pick Ty Detmer.
He could have upset somebody else. I feel like he had the potential, but Trevor T-Law is a tough one.
Yeah, he could have upset an Andre Ware. He could have upset maybe a Roger Staubach, but I don't think he doesn't upset Trevor Lawrence in any world ever.
Right.
Like there's no universe where that happens. So yeah, Trevor Lawrence definitely.
For context, 1990 season for Brigham Young University, Ty Detmer threw for 5,188 yards, 41 touchdowns, and 28 interceptions. That was an offense you could throw picks in because you were throwing the shit out of the ball. So go ahead, throw some picks. That's okay. We'll get some touchdowns out there. So
yeah, absolutely.
Love that. All righty, Mitch. Next up here, the 1-4 matchup this side of the bracket, we've got Danny Werfel versus the 4 seed Case Keenum. Case Keenum, by the way, the all-time passing yards leader in college football history by over 2,000 yards. 19,000 total career passing yards for Case Keenum in his long career at Houston. But Danny Werfel's an incredible career with Florida, excuse me. Did him wrong there.
Yeah, Florida State. Get it right, buddy.
Yeah. No, it was Florida, not Florida State.
Or Florida. Sorry.
That's what I'm saying. I don't like I'm doing them dirty, but yeah, Danny Werfel, All-American, 1996 Heisman winner, national champion. What are you thinking here? Is there a chance for an upset in this 4-1 matchup we got?
No. Danny Werfel was just so damn good. I mean, look, Case Keenum, he's got the records, he's got the numbers, but he played in Houston, right? Mm-hmm. They just air the shit out of the ball, right? We talked about another quarterback, Andre Ware played in Houston as well. We talked about, I considered a few different other Houston quarterbacks when we were mentioning, like, who maybe we should put on this list. Houston just, they throw the hell out of the ball, and that's why these quarterbacks have these big numbers, right? We could look at Texas Tech. Who was the kid that played at Texas Tech that had the big numbers? Graham Harrell. Yeah. We could look at those numbers and think, man, damn, this guy has just got big numbers. But look at the offense that they planted. Danny Werfel did the big numbers by playing in an offense where they were also running the football as well. I mean, he threw for over 35 touchdowns twice in his collegiate career. 95 and 96, he was fantastic. Over 3,200 yards in 95, over 3,600 yards in 96. That was also while having the running game as being a part of that. So I'm going to give it to Danny Werfel in this one. Yeah,
we can go Danny Werfel here. Case Keenum obviously has got the all-time records, and that means something. He just had a lot of volume, and that definitely helps. I mean, just keep this stat in mind. He did complete 70% of his passes this season in 2009, but he also threw the ball 700 times.
Yeah.
700 times that season for 5,600 yards. Yeah, you'll hit those numbers if you throw it that many times.
Volume means something.
Exactly.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So you got to take that into consideration here. And in that case, yeah, Werfel, that sounds good with me. The 2-3 matchup here, Mitch, this is going to be an interesting one. Joe Burrow, the 2 seed, Doug Flutie, the 3 seed. Burrow had the all-time one season in LSU, but had the greatest season we've ever seen from a college quarterback in that singular great season that he had. Obviously played in 2018, but not to, much success. So really it's that 2019 season we look at Burrow. Meanwhile, Doug Flutie, long, solid career at Boston College, Heisman winner in 1984, and an iconic moment to boot. It's kind of a tough one. kind of a tricky one here. Where do you sit on this?
I think it comes down to, because Doug Flutie's numbers weren't stand out. Like 1984 was great, right? He had 27 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, almost 3,500 yards passing. It's a great season from Doug Flutie. Joe Burrow has the all-time college football season as a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Doug Flutie has the all-time moment as a quarterback. Yeah. So where, how much weight does the moment actually take in this argument?
It's the question. Joe Burrow has a moment, though. That moment, the season he put together, will be stamped in college football history forever.
Yeah, but no one's playing that over and over again, right? They're playing Doug Flutie's play over and again.
Fair enough.
I think Doug Flutie's going to be remembered for that great moment. He's going to be remembered as a Heisman recipient. I think Joe Burrow is the greater quarterback, though.
Yeah.
I think when I talk myself through it, I think I got to give it to Joe Shiesty.
I think Burrow's the choice, and I think this is a very close one in that you could be tell by how we deliberated on this. But this one stat stood out to me, and yes, different eras, early 1980s for Doug Flutie compared to when Joe Burrow played. But Joe Burrow threw for 60 touchdowns in 2019 That's season.
Stupid. That's
60
stupid.
touchdowns that season. Doug Flutie threw for 67 touchdowns in his 4-year career at Boston College. So,
yeah.
I mean, just seeing those numbers next to each other was jarring.
I mean, a different era, too.
Again, different era, but still, in one season to do what Joe Burrow did, absolutely incredible. So,
yes.
Yeah, we'll go Joe Burrow here in that matchup. In the final four here, starting with what's going to be the 2-3 matchup, Chris Winkie, the 2 seed. This is the Florida State quarterback we're looking for.
Yes.
I always get Werfels and Winkie confused on where they played. I'm going to be honest. Thought I was right on that, but I was definitely wrong. But Chris Winkie, the Florida State legend, versus Vince Young, Texas legend, absolute destroyer of Dallen's hopes and dreams as a young kid watching that Rose Bowl national championship game. Vince Young is so good. I love Vince Young. And I'm glad we got to involve him on this because, yeah, he won a national championship. He doesn't have a Heisman. In fact, he's the only player on here besides the players on the 4 seeds, the small school guys, that doesn't have a Heisman. Everybody else in these higher seeds has a Heisman other than Vince Young, but he has one of the greatest wins of all time against USC in that Rose Bowl, an iconic moment, iconic performances, more deserving of Heisman. Could have won it. I mean, he's competing against Bush and Leonard and all that. But Chris Winkie had an incredible long career, 3 solid seasons, culminating in that 2000 senior season where he lit it up for Florida State and wins the Heisman. I'm kind of leaning Winkie here. Maybe it's my USC fandom as a kid coming out saying I can't pick Vince Young. I don't know how you feel on this, but I'm kind of leaning Chris Winkie.
I think this is the toughest matchup that we have in this first round.
Yeah.
Because Vince Young, man, when they play iconic college football moments, Vince Young running into the end zone to score that go-ahead touchdown in that 04 championship game.
Kills me.
That is, or no, sorry, it'll be 05.
05, yeah.
That would be, that's one of the all-time moments. He has that all-time moment, just like we talked about with Doug Flutie. But, Chris Winkie, man, he had sustained success, 3 years of sustained success.
Yeah.
Vince Young was more dominant in his shorter period of time, but Chris Winkie, maybe the slight edge over Vince Young.
Yeah.
I think the slight edge.
Yeah, they're both national champions. Chris Winkie, 1999 national championship with Florida State, and obviously he was Vince Young as we talked about. But I think we have to go Vince Young. I'm sorry, I have to go Chris Winkie here. Chris Winkie.
Oh yeah, Chris Winkie.
Yeah. I love Vince Young, and he was great and iconic and all that. And I'm glad we got to involve him and include this. He certainly could have been swapped out for other guys. You could have made a case, but I'm glad we got to include him in here. Can't get past the Seminole legend here. And the final matchup, Mitch, the 1-4 matchup here, Cam Newton, the Auburn Tiger, versus Steve McNair of Alcorn State. And I'm so glad Steve McNair gets to be included into this exercise. That year at Alcorn State in 1994 put him on the map in a way we've never seen from a player at his level. Finished third in the Heisman voting at Alcorn State in 1994 and ended up being the third overall pick in the 1995 draft to the Oilers. So Steve McNair put out an incredible season, left the FCS ranks with records to boot on the way to his great NFL career, and more than deserving of being on this list. It's hard to beat Cam Newton, though. It's really hard to beat Cam here. I want to give you the chance to talk about Steve McNair, though.
I mean, I'm actually trying to look up Steve McNair's stats right now. I can't find it on Sports Reference.
Oh yeah, it doesn't even exist on.
It doesn't even exist.
Football Sports Reference. That's how
That's how obscure this
90s.
One is.
Nobody was tracking stats in the 90s, let alone stats for Alcorn State.
Oh no, I found him for Danny Werfel. I found him for Chris Winkie. I couldn't find him for Steve McNair. Found him for Andre Ware. Couldn't find him for Steve McNair. Alcorn State, little old Alcorn State gets a shout out here. And you know what? Steve McNair, he was one of those quarterbacks that we grew up with, being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, right? For his, obviously his arm, but his mobility. I'm sorry, it's objectively Cam Newton here. It's objectively Cam Newton. I mean, Steve McNair was fantastic, but Cam Newton, what he was able to do with what little he had around him at Auburn, incredible. Newton.
Yeah. I have,
and that hurts me as an Alabama fan to say it, because Cam Newton shouldn't be getting the nod that he does, because I'm an Alabama fan. I hate Cam Newton, but I pulled up stuff on McNair just so we could kind of wrap this up. Alcorn State, obviously an HBCU, historically black university, competed at the time in the Division I AA, which is now known as the FCS levels. In 1994, his senior season, McNair gained 6,281 combined yards rushing and passing, along with 56 touchdowns. His total offense averages were 571 yards a game for 11 games that season. Incredible. Jeez. Finished third in the Heisman voting behind Rashawn Salam and Kajana Carter. So there you go. Yeah, Steve McNair deserves the shout out here, but we're going Cam Newton for the pick. Absolutely.
All righty, Mitch. 8 remain. Let's get to it. Tim Tebow, Roger Staubach, the 1 and the 2 seeds here. Staubach, again, we talked about him, the history at Navy, winning the Heisman as a quarterback in the 60s. Tebow and what he was able to do is over his whole career. It feels hard to pass on him at this spot.
It does. It really does. I think we're going to have to go Tebow here pretty easily. Easily.
We'll go Tebow, and shout out to Roger Staubach getting passed into the second round. You love to see it.
Love to see it.
Love to see it. Next up here, Mitch, this is another 1-2 matchup here. Number 1 seed, Trevor Lawrence. Number 2 seed, Matt Leonard. Now, there was a time when we were doing this exercise, in my original thoughts, that Leonard was a 1 seed. He's got a great resume, and certainly he's got a case here, but so does Trevor Lawrence. So we talked a lot about Leonard. We didn't talk about a lot about Lawrence when he came up before. What do you think of this matchup?
Sorry, I'm laughing at what my girlfriend sent me on my text. Sorry, it's Trevor Lawrence to me. It's Trevor Lawrence to me, I think. Matt Leonard had the sustained success, and there's just, I don't know if Matt Leonard didn't have the success as a freshman that Trevor Lawrence did. Yeah. And there was some sustained success. Lawrence also didn't have what Matt Leonard had around him at USC. He had
those are some all-time teams at USC.
Reggie Bush. Yeah. I think he had one of the, was it Mike Williams or Steve Smith? He had Lendale White.
That dynamic duo running back. Yeah.
The dominant defense led by Lofa Tupu. I mean, just there was so much around Matt Leonard to help him get those accolades. I think Trevor Lawrence did more with less. I got to give it to Lawrence.
Yeah, that freshman season by Trevor Lawrence was one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen in college football history. And he went on to have a fantastic career and be the number 1 overall pick. So it got better after that. So yeah, I love T-Law there. Next up, Mitch, 1 versus 2 again. Danny Werfel, the 1 seed. Joe Burrow, the 2 seed. Mitch, this is where I stand, and I proclaim that I think we need the upset here. I love Danny Werfel. He had a fantastic career at Florida. I know that now because we checked it up and I got confused. He had a fantastic career at the University of Florida, but he was carried by some great teams and, a lot of talent around him. As we've talked about some of these other guys, we've never seen an individual season like we saw in 2019 from Mr. Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, the Tiger King, Joe Exotic. I feel like it has to be Burrow.
I don't know. I don't know, Dallen. I don't know.
It's the hard conversation of the long, successful career versus the short,
if we were talking, I think for me,
season,
And I think if we were talking about the greatest single season performances of all time, absolutely Joe Burrow.
No doubt.
Danny Werfel had like 3 consecutive good seasons for the Gators. Joe Burrow had 1. He was a transfer student when he came over to LSU. I have to disagree. I have to go with Danny Werfel. And I don't know what the tiebreaker is. Do you have a coin?
I think it's okay. I think we can go with Werfel.
Okay.
I think we can go with Werfel because at the end of the day, this is a guy that had a lot of. I love Burrow. It's just you just wish he would have had a second. If 2018 was like really good, and then he put up the 60, you'd feel a little better. But the 1 year, it's hard to be considered one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time when you only did it once, not repeated.
I mean, that's why I think left Andre Ware out at the same time.
I think at this stage, I think it's fair to use that against him, and we'll go Danny Werfel here. That's fine. That's fine. All right, Mitch. Final matchup here in the second round. Cam Newton, the 1 seed, Chris Winkie, the 2 seed. We talked about Winkie at Florida State. Great career, lots of winning. Cam is, similar to Burrow. Had 1 incredible season, right? But that 1 season was one of the best seasons we've ever seen. As a runner, as a passer, 1,400 rushing yards and 20 touchdowns. Like 2,800 passing yards and 30 touchdowns through the air. Does the same argument against Joe Burrow in favor of Danny Werfel feel right here for Winkie over Newton? Because technically that's the argument we made. But I don't feel the same way. I feel like this should be Cam.
I do feel like this should be Cam, and I'll tell you why. Joe Burrow had a lot at his disposal.
Justin
Cam
Jefferson.
Newton, and you mentioned this statistic
Jamar
before.
Chase.
You mentioned this statistic before the show started. Cam Newton didn't have anyone around him that even sniffed the NFL.
Yeah,
and he did what he did.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow had elite NFL talent around him at LSU, and then did what he did. So, as much as I like Chris Winkie, and I think that he's just one of the great all-time college quarterbacks, I have to give this to Cam Newton, almost in a landslide.
I agree. Listen, both Panthers legends. Don't get me wrong. Keep pounding. We love Chris Winkie out here, but we will go with Cam on that one.
He was not expansion draft, but he was their first quarterback out of college they drafted, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. They did select him. I think it was the first one they selected themselves. So yeah, he's got a special place. Panthers. All right, 4 left, Mitch, and kind of no surprise here. It's all of the 1 seeds. I thought we might get an upset through this point, but sure enough, the four 1 seeds are left, and it starts with this matchup here of Tim Tebow and Trevor Lawrence. Holy smokes! Where do we start here? How do we even do this?
We can both admit we don't want it to be Tim Tebow.
No,
but. Is it Tim Tebow over Trevor Lawrence? When you look at greatness?
Yeah.
When you look at accolades, when you look at success at the college football level, Tim Tebow has more of that than Trevor Lawrence. He has more greatness than him. And it's hard.
But he sucks at baseball. Listen, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, he does suck at baseball. We all know that. But
I think this is the determining factor for me, Mitch. I made an error. I made an oopsie. I incorrectly stated and placed on here that Trevor Lawrence won a Heisman. He did not win the Heisman in his college career. He was 7th in 2019. He was 2nd in 2020. Trevor Lawrence did not win a Heisman.
Who did you lose that to?
So,
are we having a Mandela effect? I feel like he won a Heisman.
Kyler Murray won it in 2018. Joe Burrow won it in 2019. Devontae Smith won it in 2020.
Oh my God, that was the what? Yeah, Devontae Smith won it in 2020.
So, considering he did not win a Heisman, and considering Tim Tebow arguably could have won back-to-back Heismans in 2007, 2008, I unfortunately have to agree with you. I think it's Tim Tebow.
It is Tebow.
T-Law had one of the greatest freshman seasons of all time and a fantastic career to follow it. National champion, but that one's going to go to Tebow. And that leaves us, Mitch, this final matchup here to determine who's going to face off against John 3:16 in the final. We've got Danny Werfel and Cam Newton, 2 Florida quarterback. We ended up with 3 Florida quarterbacks at the end here. We've got Tim Tebow waiting to face off against Werfel and Newton. Are the Gators QBU? What?
They are a QB. They're a QB factory. I know that.
Wow.
Well, let's be honest. Newton backed up Tebow, right? Then he got in trouble. He went to JC.
Right.
And then he came back and went to Auburn. So he is a Florida quarterback, technically. So
yeah, that is true. Hey, again, we didn't pick Burrow over Werfel because of the 1 year. So can we pick Newton over Werfel for the 1 year? Can we do it with that in mind?
I can't.
I don't think we can.
I have to go Werfel.
Damn it. Sorry, Cam.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't.
One season is not enough to be considered the greatest quarterback of all time. One season is not enough. I think that's the
conclusion. We really okay?
We've come to this though.
Let's just get to this matchup.
Yeah.
Are we really? No. Oh.
I mean, it kind of has to be, right?
Not where I was gonna go.
You were gonna pick Danny Werfel?
I was going to pick Danny Werfel over Tim
Tebow.
Oh,
my God. Now Mitch and I have to debate Tim Tebow versus Danny Werfel for the greatest quarterback of all time. This sucks. Whose idea was this?
Mine. Sorry.
I'm just kidding.
That was both of ours. So we both were thinking it. But look, okay.
Mitch, I don't even think people remember Danny. I don't even think people remember Danny Werfel was a quarterback. Tim Tebow was like an enigma. Tim Tebow was not only a great college quarterback with a lot of success, national title, Heisman, but he was also bigger than that in a way that almost nobody else on this list can say. And take that as you will, but I think that means something. I think that the Tebow mania, I think that means something. And I think it's corny and I hate it and I'm not agreeing with it. I don't like it at all. I don't like Tim Tebow.
I don't want to pick Tim Tebow.
Pick him.
I just don't want to pick him.
I could not in good conscience
I just want to pick
end this list on Danny Werfel. I can't do it, Mitch. We have to restart if we get there. I can't. I think we have to go Tebow.
I don't want to do it.
I know.
I don't want to.
Sorry, my friend. It's happening.
I know you're right too. You know what? And I know I'm going to vote for you, and I know you're right. That pisses me off though. That Tim Tebow won this fucking tournament. It pisses me off.
And it's so funny because we really did.
The guy gets everything. The guy wins everything. Come on.
I said this to Mitch I literally said before we started, I said off the record, I don't really want Tim Tebow to win this. And I agreed on that. We did not want Tebow to win this because we're not fans of Tim Tebow. But that's how you know this is correct, because against our better judgment and against our hearts, we chose Tim Tebow because he's the right pick. I think he's probably the greatest college quarterback of all time.
I mean, the fact that it came down to Danny Werfel and Tim Tebow, I mean, if there was one guy that got eliminated early that you were thinking was going to go farther, who was it?
maybe Baker.
Yeah.
I think Baker had a strong case. There was interesting. The ESPN, I think Bill Connolly of ESPN put an article out a couple months ago
that he was
ranking the top 75 quarterbacks in college football since the year 2000. And Baker Mayfield was number one on that list over Tebow, over Newton, and over Lawrence and the others. So, which obviously I wasn't as high on Baker as Bill Connolly was, but
right.
He got ousted in the first round. I certainly could have seen that. Maybe Joe Burrow lasting longer, but that was a tough one with Werfel. He got the good matchups there with Burrow, Newton back to back, and he had a strong case to make. So,
it's just, it's hard to weigh out like the sustained success and like the 1 or 2 year booms where these guys are just fantastic. But it's like, man, this guy was great for 3 or 4 years, but damn, this guy had 1 or 2 years of really, really excellence. So, it's just hard to compare those two. But like, I really would have wished Joe Burrow would have gone further in this tournament too. But
yeah, that was one of those ones that felt like a guy that you would want to go further, but that's how the exercise goes. Greatest college quarterbacks of all time, and of the 16 names that we put together, Tim Tebow, the winner of the Sports Hour bracket today, greatest college quarterback of all time. So, and for the record, we've done 2 of these brackets, and we both feel very good about how those turned out at the end of the day. So we'll probably feel better about this in hindsight, but it doesn't feel great right now.
No, it doesn't feel good at all. I think in hindsight, we'll, like they say, hindsight's 20/20. I think we're going to look back and go, well, that might have been the right one. Might have been the right one.
Yeah, I think so. All righty. That's going to do it for the podcast this week. It's been a jam-packed show. Again, our last little summer episode of fun before we get into the meat and potatoes